Good evening, everybody. My name is Chris Hoff, and I am a Dharma teacher with the Empty Moon Zen Sangha. This morning, I was revisiting the Dhammapada. For those that might not know, the Dhammapada is arguably the best known and most widely revered text in the Pali Tipitaka, the sacred scriptures of Theravada Buddhism. According to Theravada Buddhist tradition, each verse in the Dhammapada was originally spoken by the Buddha in response to a particular episode the Sangha was experiencing at the time. This morning, I was on the section titled Adavaga, or the Self. In the translation I was reading, I was captured by verse 159, which stated that, to straighten the crooked, you must first do a harder thing, straighten yourself. This particular line had me reflecting on our current dilemmas and my responses or possible responses to them. It also had me reflecting on a recent conversation I had with a friend where they had shared with me their impressions on new discoveries they had made reading a Pema Chodron book. This friend shared that they were coming to understand that until they could offer themselves compassion, it would be hard to offer the world that same compassion. The world is crooked right now. Racism, murder, police brutality, toxic politics. Seemingly everywhere we might look these days, we see crooked. In these difficult times, it would be easy to fall into the trap that has us believing that if we just straighten out the world, we will be okay. But what is the Buddha asking us to do here? As someone born into this world as a white hetero cis male, I have learned from racial justice educators that first, I must understand how my own whiteness has cause and effect in the world, how I have been raised and conditioned in a system that is racist and patriarchal in nature, and that I have benefited from it and continue to contribute to it, and how my own ignorance or fragility keeps me from seeing the problem or listening to those experiencing these oppressions. These are all hard things to lean into, but any racial or social justice educator will tell you that we have to do our own learning first before we can be truly helpful to the cause, that we need to do the harder thing, straighten ourselves. As a therapist by trade, I also sit with many people who are suffering due to the conditions of their lives. This is a very real thing, real and empty. Real in that there are constraints to lives that can be experienced as intractable, empty in that there is always more to the story than what we might see at the time. As a therapist, all my work is relational, often dealing with conflict. Much of this work is with couples in conflict. Initially, these couples come to me seemingly with the hope that I will adjudicate who is to blame, who is wrong, or who is crazy in the partnership. Many of these couples mistakenly believe if the other person would just, everything would be okay. But this approach bypasses relational responsibility or accountability. It's always easy to see the crooked in the other. Following the Buddha's encouragement, much of my work is having people look to their own experience first, in an effort of making visible the invisible. Searching for the ideas, concepts, discourses at play in people's lives that are influencing them in ways known and unknown. This is much harder work than pointing the finger at the other. Like my friend who is discovering that until they can offer compassion to themselves, it will be quite hard to offer anything other than a performative compassion to their relationships. I too am reflecting on the work still needed to be done. This is where Dogen's one continuous mistake might offer some solace. I don't know what was going on in or around the Sangha that prompted the Buddha to teach, to straighten the crooked, you must first do a harder thing, straighten yourself. But I would like to imagine that it was just as confusing and chaotic as what we are experiencing now, and that he noticed the monks taking the easier and more destructive route of finger pointing and blame, rather than the wise option of doing the hard things, looking at ourselves.